I was delighted to get back to my regular schedule of 3 Dungeon Master tips and 2 player tips every week this week, starting with DM tip number 1, don't neglect downtime. Give your PCs a month, a couple of weeks of rest in-game, and let them flesh out what their characters want to do and how they want to evolve outside the script, let's say, or away from the table. I've done this in a number of different ways. I've facilitated it through Facebook Messenger with each one of my players, and we've played out the scenario in text. They've talked to me a little bit about what they wanted to do, what they wanted to achieve, or what objectives they wanted to conquer based on the amount of time that I was giving them. And sometimes it was a week, sometimes it was a couple of months. So we'd go back and forth and come to an agreement on what they could accomplish in that time. It's tremendous for character development. It lets you satisfy some needs that maybe characters didn't have fulfilled in the last story arc, and I usually bring this in between every major story arc. Of course, throughout gameplay, they're going to have lots of opportunity to visit cities, interact with NPCs, and do things like this, but this type of downtime lets them identify a project they want to work on that might take a month, that would be really kind of clunky and frankly boring to play out at the table. So don't neglect downtime. Find a way to play that scenario, even if you take it away from the table. I'm sure your characters will love it. And be sure to jump on Twitter, follow me at Shambazzle Games, and talk to me about how you're managing downtime in your games. The second DM tip, and kind of a close cousin to that, is to keep a log of what's happening outside of the campaign environment. I always say my worlds are living and breathing, and they happen in real time. So if the characters move away from Objective A and start to follow another storyline, well, the world still happens for Objective A and the cities, people, and social environments involved in those pockets. So keep a log of what's happening outside of there. When I'm running a campaign, I've got my session notes on what's happening in the world where the players are currently focused. And then I also have a side log with all the other things they've encountered and engaged with. And I update that every session as well. So session to session, things are happening in these 6 or 7 other arcs while the players are focused on the primary arc, let's say. This helps inspire organic effects on the future of the PC. So when they come back to those objectives, they will be evolved. Things will be changed. Maybe the same people aren't around. Maybe more people are involved. Maybe the political landscape has changed and now they have to readjust. Maybe a town has been ravaged while they've been away. Maybe some of their favorite NPCs have gone missing. The possibilities are endless there when you really treat it like a living, breathing world behind the scenes, as well as what's in focus in the spotlight today. Now, the third and one of my favorite DM tips this week is intended for those of you who might be having trouble delivering succinct descriptions at the table. I really like to be as descriptive as possible as a DM, and honestly, my challenge to work on is not to provide too much exposition to the point where I'm kind of rambling about the environment. My players are like, okay, let me just do stuff now. So I always try to keep it nice, short, and sweet, but that can be difficult to do when you're in the moment and you've got, 100 other things going on as a game master. So to check yourself, always think about the 5 senses, right? Your hearing, sight, smell, taste, and touch. How do things sound in the environment? What do they look like in the environment? What can you feel? And feel is a bit of a tough one, but it might be a tactile sensation, a tiled wall slick with stale water, or a rough hedge that is thorny and threatens the proximity along a bank. Things like that can contribute to feel, or it could be just a chill in the air as a brisk wind blows through the shaft of a long forgotten tunnel. How things taste? Well, hopefully they're tasting things that are meant to be tasted. You can always lick a wall, I guess, and describe that if you want. But, let's be honest, that could totally happen. So think about the 5 senses. And then, of course, the 6th for D&D specifically, furniture. Describe how the room is finished. So let's just run that off the top of the head. You step into a common room, which has long been forgotten. You see billowing cobwebs that sway and flow as a brisk breeze cools the air around you. You also see the still embers of a fire that has long since gone out, but not so far in the past that heat doesn't still emanate from its burning coals. The only scent in the air is the stale musk of adventurers whose stories have never been told, and a general sense of eerie silence permeates the entire environment. Play with it, and the more you use this tactic, the better you'll get at it, the faster you'll be at delivering accurate and succinct, descriptive descriptions. That's redundant. Maybe it will help with your podcast and videos too. I don't know. All right, jumping into player tips. This is a player tip that kind of helps the DM, but it helps all the players at the table too. When you're using a spell or ability that's going to require or trigger a save, let your DM know or GM know as soon as you cast or action that ability what the save is, and specifically what DC they need to beat. You know your DC, of course it's yours. It's the only one you have to remember. But GMs, amongst, like I said, the 100 things that we have going through our heads, we often have trouble keeping track of what everyone's DC is all the time, or armor class, or anything specific like that to your character. So when you're doing something that's going to require your DM to save or throw against your DC, give them the effect, but also give them the DC to just keep things moving. It'll help us out a lot too. The second player tip and the final tip for this week is about engagements and encountering in combat. Why wait for a battle to end to interrogate a foe? The example I used is when you're locked in sword battle or sword play with an enemy, nothing's stopping you from saying, who sent you, or who do you work for, or where are the trucks going? I don't know. Just be creative, but speaking and issuing short commands like that are a free action. They don't play into your action economy, like we mentioned earlier, and they really add a lot of color to the engagement that's happening around combat, so you're not just rolling dice, hack, slash, and wait for your turn to come around. Add narrative to the combat around the table. Talk to your comrades. See if you can call out orders. That guy's got a knife. I don't know. Or that one's not paying attention. Shoot him in the face. I don't know. But add some narrative around the table and communicate with your comrades, because that's what happens on the battlefield. There's often a lot of shouting. People don't sit around a battlefield and anything that I've seen just quietly waiting for their turn to act. So hopefully with these tips and tricks in mind, you can bring them into your game this week. Do let me know if you use them, or if you have tips and tricks of your own. I'm always happy to share those out. And if you give me a DM tip or a player tip and I use it in my feed, then I'll definitely shout you out on my Twitter feed too. So yeah, we'll see you in the verse. With that, let's get into D&D news for the week.